In the silence of the ruined alien city, her voice trembled. "Don't risk your life for me," she whispered, terrified, desperate, certain he'd listen. But the human didn't move. He stood in the open, blaster burns scorching his armor, his blood mixing with rain and dust. Around them, alien drones screamed overhead, searching for survivors. He looked back once, eyes calm, determined, and said the words that would echo across the galaxy. "Then it's not a risk. It's a promise." The galaxy would never forget what happened next. Hey, if stories like this remind you why humanity is legendary, take a second to like, subscribe, and share this video. It really helps this channel bring more powerful HFY moments like this one to life. And trust me, what happens after this? You'll want to stick around for it. All right, let's dive into the story. The city once glowed like a jewel, towers of crystal and silver spiraling into clouds of violet mist. But now, the jewel was shattered. Lethar Prime, home of the proud Lethari species, was burning. The sky itself looked wounded, streaks of black smoke tearing through what was once a peaceful horizon. Every building was broken, and every sound that echoed through the ruins carried the same weight: loss. And yet, there was one sound that didn't belong. Footsteps, heavy, determined, a human. Sergeant Eli Kwon moved through the wreckage, his armor cracked, his breathing ragged inside the rebreather mask. His rifle's power cell flickered with each shot, but he didn't stop. Not once. He'd promised himself he wouldn't. Somewhere under all that ash and steel was Dr. Veleth, a Lethari scientist. The same alien who once saved him months ago when the humans and the Lethari were still enemies. She'd broken the rules of her empire to pull him out of the flames that day. And now, it was his turn. He ducked under a collapsed archway, scanning the shadows. The air shimmered with heat, and alien drones hovered in the distance, glassy spheres pulsing red as they searched for survivors. His comlink buzzed faintly. A voice came through, rough and broken with static. "Human, you shouldn't be here." "Veleth?" Eli froze, heart pounding. There was a long pause before the reply came, faint and shaking. "You need to leave. They're hunting you. My people will kill you if they find you. Don't risk your life for me." Eli exhaled slowly, leaning against a shattered wall. He could hear the drones moving closer. The rational thing to do, the military thing, was to turn back, to survive. But rationality died the moment she saved him. He looked out over the burning city and whispered, "Too late for that." When he found her, she was pinned beneath a section of collapsed tower, her bioluminescent skin dimmed to a pale blue. The elegant tendrils that flowed from her temples, the sign of her species' mind-link ability, were covered in ash. She blinked weakly when she saw him. "Eli, you came back?" He dropped his rifle and started pulling debris off her legs, each piece heavier than the last. "Told you I owed you one." "This is madness," she rasped. "Your kind doesn't survive here." He smiled faintly. "We adapt, it's kind of our thing." The line made her pause. There was something about the way humans said things. Simple words, but they carried weight. Above them, a drone screeched. Eli looked up. One of the glass spheres had spotted them. Red targeting beams sliced through the smoke. "Damn it!" He swung his rifle up and fired. Blue plasma bolts lit the air, shattering the drone in a flash. But that single kill had sounded the alarm. Hundreds of lights began to flicker through the haze. Enemy signals. "They're coming," she whispered. "Yeah," he said quietly, lifting her into his arms. "Then we better move." They stumbled through the ruins, him half carrying, half dragging her. The heat was unbearable, the air filled with the metallic scent of burning crystal. Behind them, alien soldiers poured through the streets, tall, silver-armored, and fast. Eli ducked into a crumbling transit tunnel. His pulse was pounding now, his vision blurry. She could see he was injured. Deep plasma burns along his shoulder. "You're hurt," she said. "Just a scratch." "You're lying." "Yeah, but it sounded cool, right?" She almost smiled. Almost. They reached a maintenance hatch. Beyond it, the tunnels led to the river that ran under the city, an escape route. Set her down gently. You go first. She grabbed his arm, her fingers trembling. You can't fight them all. If you stay, you die. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time she saw what made humans different. There was no logic in his eyes, no calculation, just resolve. Don't risk your life for me, she pleaded again. But Eli just chuckled softly, shaking his head. Then it's not a risk, he said. It's a promise. The first squad burst through the smoke. Energy bolts tore through the air, lighting up the tunnel in violent flashes. Eli turned, rifle blazing, every shot perfect, precise, fueled not by training but by something else entirely, by loyalty, by humanity. He shouted back over the noise, "Run, Veleth, don't stop!" And she did, tears streaking down her luminous cheeks as she crawled into the tunnel. Behind her, the sounds of battle echoed, fading into the roar of water and the screams of dying soldiers. When she looked back one last time, she saw him, standing tall against the storm, his armor glowing with reflected firelight, surrounded but unbroken. A single human, holding the line. That day, the Lethari Empire lost its city, but gained something far greater. A story. A story whispered for generations about the human who refused to leave. The world above was burning. But deep beneath the ruins of Lethar Prime, the river tunnels whispered with a different kind of sound. The steady rush of water, and the fading echoes of gunfire. Dr. Veleth stumbled through the darkness, clutching the wall for balance. Her wounds throbbed with every step. Every few seconds she turned back, waiting to hear his footsteps. But none came, only the distant rumble of explosions. "Eli," she whispered, her voice cracking. No answer. The scientist in her wanted to believe he'd escaped another way. The survivor in her knew better. Above, the alien soldiers regrouped in the shattered streets. The human was surrounded, one man against 30. His armor flickered with dying power, his rifle overheated, his breath shallow. And yet, he stood. "Last chance, human," one of the soldiers barked. "Drop your weapon." Eli glanced down at the small hollow photo clipped inside his wrist pad, a picture of his old squad. Smiling faces. People long gone. He smiled back at them, then lifted his rifle again. "Sorry, boys," he muttered. "Looks like we're doing this the hard way." The soldiers fired. Plasma bolts screamed through the air, lighting up the night in violent arcs. Eli moved like a ghost through the chaos, ducking, rolling, firing back. Every motion was instinct. Every shot defiance made visible. He wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to be remembered. Down below, Veleth reached the end of the tunnel, a floodgate leading out into the river. She could see the faint light of dawn through the cracks painting the water gold. But she didn't step through. She couldn't. Not without knowing. Against every order, every survival instinct, she turned and ran back toward the sound of battle. The smoke grew thicker, the air hotter, her lungs screamed, and then, through the haze, she saw him. Eli stood atop a collapsed transport, one knee bent, rifle aimed, armor shattered and half his face exposed. The storm raged around him, drones spinning, soldiers shouting, but he didn't move. He was calm, almost peaceful. "Eli," she screamed. He turned his head slightly, smiled faintly, and shouted, "Told you I'd keep my promise." A plasma bolt struck his chest. He staggered, but didn't fall. Another hit, then another. Still he fired back. One shot, 2, 3. He didn't miss. When his rifle finally died, he tossed it aside and drew his combat knife. The blade, chipped, dull, human steel, caught the light as he charged straight into the enemy ranks. They'd never seen anything like it. He wasn't fast. He wasn't strong by alien standards, but the look in his eyes, that was the difference. It wasn't rage. It wasn't fear. It was the quiet certainty of someone who had already accepted death and chosen to fight anyway. When it was over, silence claimed the street. The smoke thinned. The city stilled. Dozens of alien soldiers lay fallen, their armor burned with plasma scarring. And there, in the center of it all, lay the human, motionless, hand still gripping the knife, eyes open toward the sky. Dr. Veleth fell to her knees beside him, trembling. She reached for his hand. It was still warm. For the first time in her life, she cried for someone not of her kind. Hours later, the Lethari search teams arrived. They found her beside him, and the bodies of their soldiers scattered around like fallen statues. No one spoke. For centuries, the Lethari had believed themselves superior, physically, mentally, spiritually. But here was proof of something else, something terrifying, that humans were not defined by their strength, but by the lengths they would go for a promise. Years passed. The war ended. The alliance between humans and Lethari was signed in the Hall of Peace on Terra. And at its center stood a monument, tall, silver and simple. A human figure standing defiantly with a cracked rifle in hand. At the base were words carved in both languages. Then it's not a risk, it's a promise. Dr. Veleth, now an ambassador, often stood before it in silence. Sometimes she swore she could still hear his voice, calm, steady, unyielding. And across the galaxy, stories spread of the soldier who stayed behind. Some called him reckless, others called him mad, but most called him human. So when the galaxy tells tales of courage, they don't speak of conquerors or kings. They speak of a single man who refused to run. A man who proved that humanity's greatest weapon was never its ships, its guns, or its armies, but its heart. And in that moment, when Sergeant Eli Kwon stood against an empire to keep a promise, humanity didn't just survive, it became legend. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in what makes us human. The fire that never dies. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in Eli's place? Because somewhere out there in the stars, another promise is waiting to be kept.